You probably picture it the same way everyone does. A cave, flickering firelight on stone walls. A family huddled at the entrance watching the dark, safe inside the rock while the world outside tries to kill them. That image is almost entirely wrong. For most of human prehistory, caves were rare, cold, damp, already occupied by things with claws, and completely immovable. You cannot follow the animals to water if your home is bolted to the side of a mountain. The cave was the exception. The temporary shelter was the rule. And what ancient humans actually built to survive the night is stranger, more sophisticated, and far more impressive than any cave. This is the story of how humans learned to make a home, and what that process reveals about who we actually are. Start with the problem, because the problem of shelter is not the one most people think it is. The obvious threat is predators. Leopards, lions, hyenas, things that hunt at night, and can smell you from a kilometer away. But predators were not the primary killer. Cold was, wind was, rain was. A human being exposed to the elements without shelter can die from hypothermia in hours. A human being who sleeps badly for 3 consecutive nights makes catastrophic decisions. It was about maintaining the body temperature and the rest quality that kept a brain functional enough to survive everything else. Your ancient ancestors understood this intuitively, not as science, as experience. The ones who built better shelter lived longer, thought more clearly, and had more children. Over hundreds of thousands of years, the drive to make a protected sleeping space was refined into something close to an instinct. And the first shelters were not built of stone. The oldest evidence of deliberate human-made shelter does not come from caves. It comes from open ground. Archaeologists working at a site called Terra Amata, near Nice, France, found the remains of what appear to be simple oval huts, dating to roughly 400,000 years ago. These were not permanent structures. They were temporary, built from branches and large stones used to anchor the base. The evidence suggests they were used seasonally, built when the group arrived and abandoned when they moved on. 400,000 years ago, before Homo sapiens even existed as a species, the drive to build was already there. The materials were whatever the land offered: branches, large leaves, animal hides, grass. In the open plains of Africa and Eurasia, where trees were sparse, early humans used what they had in abundance: mammoth bones. At a site in Ukraine called Mezhyrich, archaeologists uncovered something extraordinary. 4 structures built almost entirely from mammoth bones: skulls, tusks, jawbones, and leg bones interlocked with deliberate engineering precision. The largest structure used 95 individual mammoth bones. They are estimated to be between 15,000 and 17,000 years old. The builders did not find these bones randomly. They collected them. They transported them. They planned the construction. They understood load-bearing principles: heavier bones at the base, interlocking joints for stability, curved tusks forming the roof arc. These were not desperate humans piling bones to keep the wind off. These were engineers solving a structural problem with the materials available to them. The inside of these bone structures contained evidence of central hearths. Fire was not kept at the entrance. It was brought inside and managed in the center. This is important because it tells us something about the sophistication of these builders. They understood ventilation. They understood that smoke needed somewhere to go. They built openings in specific positions to allow airflow while maintaining heat. They had figured out the basic physics of interior climate control, without a single textbook. The hearth was not just a heat source. It was the center of everything that happened inside the shelter. Food was cooked there. Tools were made there. Stories were told there. Archaeological sites consistently show that ancient hearths were ringed with tools, food remains, and evidence of long occupation. The fire transformed a simple structure from a place to sleep into something more, a place to be. This is when shelter became home. But the mammoth bone builders of Ukraine were already working at a level of sophistication that took hundreds of thousands of years to reach. The path there began much more simply. In Africa, where Homo sapiens evolved, the earliest shelters were almost certainly constructed from organic materials that have not survived: branches bent and tied, grasses woven into mats, animal hides draped over simple frames. We cannot see most of this because it decomposed, but we can see the pattern of stones, sometimes used to anchor the edges. We can see the ash deposits in consistent locations, suggesting repeated use of the same shelter sites across seasons. We can see the behavior, even when the buildings are gone. One of the most revealing clues comes from South Africa, at a site called Sibudu Cave, which is technically a rock shelter, an overhang rather than a true cave. Researchers found something unexpected in the sediment layers. Bedding. Not just grass, but carefully chosen grass mixed with leaves from specific plant species that have natural insecticidal and medicinal properties. The builders were not sleeping on whatever was available. They were selecting materials that repelled insects, reduced the presence of parasites, and potentially had mild medicinal effects. This bedding is approximately 7,000 years old. Ancient humans were not just building structures, they were designing interiors. The transition from mobile shelters to permanent structures is one of the most consequential shifts in human history. And it did not happen quickly or simply. For most of the time that Homo sapiens have existed, shelter was portable and temporary, because the people were portable and temporary. You build what you need for the season, then you move. This is not primitive. This is exactly rational given a lifestyle built around following animals and seasonal food sources. The change came with farming. When humans began cultivating plants and keeping animals approximately 10,000 years ago, they needed to stay in one place. And staying in one place meant building something that would last more than one season. The early farming settlements of the ancient Near East show this transition in remarkable detail. At Çatalhöyük, in modern Turkey, the mud brick house has been built on every inhabited continent, and it is still being built today in exactly the same basic way. Some things do not improve, because they are already correct. The progression from the bent, branched shelters of early Homo sapiens to the bone-engineered structures of Ukraine, to the mud brick towns of the ancient Near East, follows a consistent logic. Each generation solved the same problem: how to maintain body temperature, protect sleep, create a space for fire and tools and community, with the best materials available to them. When organic materials were abundant, they used those. When mammoth bones were available, they used those. When they settled near clay deposits, they invented brick. The civilization built what it needed, and what every civilization needed. From the first bent branch shelter to the first plastered mud wall, was the same thing. A place to come back to, a fire to find in the dark. A structure that said, here is where we are, here is where we sleep. Here is where we are safe enough to think about tomorrow. The cave on the wall of every museum, that dark opening in the rock, with the handprints above the entrance, is real, and it matters. But it was never the whole story. Most of your ancestors they slept in something they built themselves, with their own hands, from whatever the land around them offered. And they built it well enough that some of it survived 77,000 years in the ground, waiting for us to find it. The first human home was not a cave. It was an idea. The idea that you could take the materials the world gave you and make from them a place that was yours. That idea is still the one you live inside right now.